Sharing screen now. Okay, hello everyone. This is my first attempt at using Zoom to record a Photoshop tutorial, so just bear with me. In this tutorial, I will be demonstrating how to paint leaves in Photoshop, or humble leaf, an autumn leaf for that matter. So we're going to start off by opening up Photoshop, and you can see the interface on the screen right now. And then I'll click on Create New. And what should happen now is I should get a window. Yep, there it is. And it's asking me what type of document do I want, what type of canvas. So I'm going to click on Print at the top here, and I will specify that I want not A4. I'm going to go for something smaller. I'll choose A5. So here's all the print sizes, and I actually recommend when you're learning Photoshop to choose a print size rather than a screen size like the web. And then over here on the right, I will specify I want a wide or landscape orientation. Everything else is okay. 300 dots per inch is perfect. There's the dimensions in millimeters. I'll go ahead and click on Create. And what should come up right now is a white canvas. And that's my brand new canvas. And you can see I've got my layer palette open. If for some reason you don't have the layer palette on your screen, you just go to Window and you can choose it from there. All right, so the first thing to remember about Photoshop is you don't paint on the background layer. You just leave that alone. We're going to go down the bottom here of the layer palette, and you can see it all the plus symbol, and that means you can create a new layer from there. And there it is. It's a brand new blank clear layer. There's no paint on it, and it's ready for me to paint my leaf. All right, now over here at the toolbox, there's a number of tools that I will talk about. The first thing I want to do is click on the color. Now this top square here is the foreground color, and the bottom square is the background color. And if that doesn't make any sense to you, that's fine. All you need to know is to choose a color. You click on the top square, the foreground color. The color picker appears, a special window. And the way it works is you move the little elevator dial up and down the color spectrum. And let's say you want a olive color green, pardon me, an autumn green. I'll rest it about there. So it's kind of like a yellowy green. And then over here, you then click on the green that you want. And think of this area like a skating rink. You just skate around with your mouse pressed down. And as you can see, the colors are changing as I skate around. Remember to keep your mouse pressed down when you do that. So I'm going to stop around about here and click OK. Now I've got my color green selected. Now I go to the brush tool, which is this baby here. Now, incidentally, if you right click on the tools, you'll get a little pop-up menu. So all these tools have little pop-up menus, additional tools if you like. So yeah, just remember that. You can right click to get up additional tools. The other thing that's great about right clicking is it brings up the name of the tool, but also the keyboard shortcut, which is the letter B. If I click on this tool, where is it? Let's go to this one. That's the dodge tool. There's the eraser tool, and I know that because I right click. And incidentally, the keyboard shortcut for the eraser tool is E. So the reason it's good to know those keyboard shortcuts is if you're erasing away and you want to go to the brush tool, you just tap on the letter B, which I'm about to do now, and you can see it automatically switches and selects the brush tool. So that's a handy thing to learn. Right, now with the brush tool, yeah, you can go over here and start brushing away. However, you've got to set this up properly. You can't just brush without choosing, number one, the brush type, and number two, the size and opacity of the brush. And opacity just means how thick the paint comes out of the tube. Now, I don't want that little mark that I made, so I'm just going to go Control Z a number of times to go back to my blank layer. Right, so here we go. Brush tool selected. Up at the top here is where I choose my brush type. Now, you've got a whole bunch of brushes you can choose from. Just to make life easier, I'm going to open up the folder for general brushes and choose the hard round brush. Okay, so I've got that. And you can see the hardness is on 100% and the size is at 175 pixels. So, oh, hang on, what did I do? Let me just, I accidentally clicked on something. Let me just correct that. Sorry about that. So now if I can I just put that back to where it was, that's better. If I now want to paint a leaf, I can, I'm using a mouse. I can just do a shape that looks something like that. It's pretty rough leaf. And then I can paint the inside as well. And as I'm painting, notice over here where the layer is, it's actually showing me on the layer thumbnail, which is this area here, that I've just painted a fairly rough looking leaf. And that's a good way of starting off. It's a flat, bold color with no rendering. And this is one technique that's very popular with many artists. All right, now, the other thing that you may want to do is move the leaf or transform it. Let's say you're not really happy with the shape. So once you've painted the leaf, you can go to the edit menu and there's a whole bunch of tricks under the transform menu. The one that I like is the warp effect. So if you choose warp, this box appears with these blue dots. Watch what happens when I move the blue dots. You can actually distort the shape of the leaf. It's quite wacky what you can do after the fact. You got to be careful that you don't distort it too much. The other thing you can do is once you've changed the shape of the leaf, you've warped it. If you're happy with what you've got, you press the Enter key on your keyboard, and that will just tell Photoshop that you're happy and you've accepted the change. Now, going back to edit and back to transform, there's something called, actually, this one here, not transform, just above the transform, there's something called free transform. And the keyboard shortcut is Control T on a PC, Command T on a Mac. So what you can do here, if you go Control T after you've painted your leaf, a similar looking box appears, which lets you rotate the leaf, and it lets you resize it to scale. That's okay. I can rotate it. I can flip it around. Lots of little things that I can change the size in proportion. If I want to distort it, I hold down the Shift key, and now I can distort the leaf. So that's interesting. That's a 2021 feature of Photoshop. All right, so I'm happy with that. Let's position it there. And once again, press the Enter key to tell Photoshop that you're happy with the change. All right, now, once you've got your flat color leaf, we can now talk about rendering. There's a few ways you can do this in Photoshop. Very important though, before you can render the leaf, you have to select the leaf. And what that means, if you go to the select tools here, these are all the selection tools. The only one that will let you select the tool, let you select the leaf, there's a few, are the ones that appear under this menu here. So Object Selection Tool, if you click on a Select Subject, wait a few seconds, Photoshop will select the leaf for you. So once again, that's Object Selection Tool and then Select Subject. The other one that will work is the magic wand. So let me just Control Z to, Control D to deselect the leaf. And now if I click on the leaf with the magic wand, so there it is, magic wand, that will also select it. In fact, it's actually quicker than the Object Select tool. So when you're rendering anything that's a flat basic color in Photoshop, you have to select it first. Now let me just deselect that once more, Control D. There's another way you can select the leaf, and that is to hold down the Control key and simply click the thumbnail for the layer. So one click, and you can see Photoshop has selected the leaf. And we call that marching line, or that dotted line that's moving, we call that marching ants. So if you can see the marching ants, it's selected. If you want to deselect it, you just go Control D. We're going to be talking a lot about keyboard shortcuts with this tutorial. All right, so once again, let's select that. Control D, Control click thumbnail. Now, once you've selected the shape, you change the color because we're going to do some rendering. Let's choose a nice bright yellow, maybe one of these. Now, you can't just go and start painting with a bright yellow because that's what you're going to get. So what you're going to do is change the brush and the opacity. So let's just undo that last move. Now, the brush that I might choose for rendering is the soft round brush. It doesn't really matter, but the important thing here is the opacity, which is this little dial at the top here. If I bring down the opacity to about, say, 11%, 10%, it just means that when I am painting, I get very subtle washes of color. It's like watercolor now. So I can add a really thin wash of yellow because the opacity has been turned down. Hope that makes sense. Let me just change the color to something more red. There you go, a dark orange. Now, at this point, you're probably wondering, that brush is quite small. How do I make my brush bigger or smaller? Well, I can go back here and play around with this dial, and you can see the brush is bigger. If I go all the way over here, look how big it is now. If I go the other way, it's quite small. So that's one way of doing it. There's another way, which is a bit more automatic, and that's using the keyboard again. If you look at your keyboard, next to the letter P, on the right-hand side of the letter P, there's some square bracket keys. Now, if I tap on the right square bracket, which I'm doing now, you can hear that noise. That's making my brush bigger. If I tap on the left square bracket key, it's making it smaller. Now, some people like that because you can, when you're rendering, you can change the size of the square bracket key, and that would make painting a lot quicker, a lot easier. So there you go, a quickly rendered leaf with a bit of green, yellow, and orange. Now at this point, I'm still with my paintbrush tool. If I want to sample some of the colors from before, say, let's say I want to go and sample some of the green. If I hold down the Alt key, my brush cursor becomes an eyedropper. See that? Now, with the eyedropper, I can sample a color that's already there. So anywhere that I click, you can see over here, the color's changing. So if I want that green again, you click on the green, and now when you let go of the Alt key, you're back to the brush, and you can add more green. If you want a bit of orange, hold down the Alt key, sample the orange that's already there, and now you can go back and paint some more orange. So that's a pretty handy way of sampling colors that are already on the canvas. All right, I'm happy with that. I would deselect it, Control D. And if I want to move it around, I can click on the Move tool. This is really important. Always remember, if you want to move anything in Photoshop, to click on the Move tool. Now, you're probably thinking, pretty boring, one leaf. Well, this is when it gets interesting. I will duplicate this leaf in a few seconds. And you don't have to paint another leaf. It's really quite easy in Photoshop if you know about duplicate layer. Now, duplicate layer is up here in this little menu here. There it is there. I'll just show you that again. Those parallel lines, you click on that or just click once. This pop-up menu appears and you choose duplicate layer. And it'll say, well, what do you want to call this layer? We'll just leave it at that for now, layer 1 copy. And believe it or not, you have got 2 leaves exactly the same. If you don't believe me, with the Move tool, I will move one out of the way. Now, at this point, I should tell you to rename your layers, otherwise it gets a bit confusing. Now, to rename a layer, where it says layer 1, you double click it, it's going to blink, turn blue, and then you type in any name you want. And in this case, I'm going to type in leaf 1. Now, for the second layer, the copy, I'm going to double click it, and I'll call this one leaf 2. Now, obviously, with leaf number 2, I can move it around, but it looks very similar to leaf number 1. In fact, it looks exactly the same, which is a bit boring. So the first thing I want to do is transform it. Now you might remember from before, it's under Edit. You can go to Transform and you can do any one of these features. I might just flip it for a start, flip horizontal. And then at the same time, I might go back to Edit and I might just choose Warp. And this will really alter the shape. Let's just do a couple little bit of manipulations here. A wonky little leaf. These little handles as well makes you, you can bend the shape as well by dragging on these little handles. So that's pretty good to know. So now I've got a nice fat leaf. I'm just going to press the Enter key to accept it. And also I will go Control T, which is the free transform shortcut. And I will drag one of the handles down and make the leaf a bit smaller. So it's a little bit different from the first leaf, but there's one more trick up my sleeve. And that is, again, go to the menu, image menu this time, adjustments, and I will choose hue and saturation. And notice the keyboard shortcut is Control U. Now, when this window appears, I can move these sliders and change the coloring of my second leaf. It's as simple as that. I can bring down the saturation or dial it up. I can bring down, dial up the lightness or the darkness. There's lots of things I can do at this point. And then when you click OK, you've got a completely different looking leaf. I might just go and transform that again, Control T, and rotate. So now I've got two leaves that look completely different. Let's go for one more. I'm just going to duplicate the one that's there. Now, instead of going to the pop-up menu and choosing duplicate, I'll teach you the keyboard shortcut for duplicate layer. First, you select the leaf. First you select the layer. Then on your keyboard, you go Command J. Doesn't matter which leaf you duplicate. And now I've got another leaf exactly like leaf 2. Over here, I'll change the name to leaf number 3. And once again, I can transform it. Control T. I can rotate it. And I might just hold down the Shift key this time and make it a skinny leaf. There you go. Press the Enter. And once again, I can bring up hue and saturation. The keyboard shortcut is Control U. And this time I'll change the coloring once again. Let's go into this area here. Oh, into the greens. Nice. So now I've got 3 leaves, slightly transformed and distorted, one on top of the other. Now, this is where I talk about the layer stack itself, the order of the layers. Now, notice the green leaf is at the top. If I want it behind the red one, I just drag that layer down to here. And now it sits, because it's in the middle, it's between the red and the yellow, you can see it's now hidden between the red and the yellow. If I want it under the yellow, I just keep dragging it down and it's disappeared from view, but it's actually there, you just can't see it. So that's really important to know about the layer stack. If I want to move the orange one, I can't move it. I can if I click on it. That's a new feature with Photoshop 2020, but you've got to be careful. Sometimes if you're trying to click on something, you've got to be on the right layer to move it. If I press over here with my mouse, nothing happens. I have to actually press on the actual artwork to move it. And the same with that yellow leaf. If I click over here, nothing happens. I have to actually hover my mouse over the yellow leaf and now I can move it. So that's something really important to remember. All right, the last thing is zooming in and out, and then we'll finish the tutorial at that. So zooming in, you've got a few options in Photoshop. You go to View, that's the first option, and you can zoom in and out by choosing these commands. Or as you can see under View, there's a keyboard shortcut, Control plus and Control minus. So let's try that. Control plus will zoom in, Control minus will zoom out. So that works as well. The other way of zooming in and out is using the keyboard in another way. If you hold down the Control and the space bar, you automatically get a magnifying glass, a zoom glass. And that lets you zoom in anywhere you want. If you add the Alt key, the magnifying glass becomes a minus, a zoom out glass. and then you can go back to zooming out. Now, let's just say you've zoomed all the way in and you're so close, you want to go back to normal. Control 0 brings everything back to normal. It's what they call fit on screen, which is there. Now, I haven't talked too much about texture and adding sort of more detail to the leaves, but I think that's probably enough for now. Have a bit of a play around, and then, yeah, the next tutorial will go into a bit more detail about texture and adding a bit more quality to the shapes that we're creating in Photoshop. Okay, now, thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording there. Let me just stop sharing first and stop recording. Thank you.